بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. قال الله الحكيم في محكم كتابه الكريم: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. عاشروهن بالمعروف فإن كرهتموهن فعسى أن تكرهوا شيئا ويجعل الله فيه خيرا كثيرا. آمنا بالله، صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. Dear Mu'mineen and Mu'minat, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept the efforts of Mu'mineen and Mu'minat who chose on this night to gather in an Islamic center for spirituality, for education, for socialization with other believers and mu'mineen. All of these intentions will be inshallah rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Great intentions and great efforts, and it will be rewarded. And the least that you will go back with is your participation in a gathering that malaika are in fact in every corner, every part of such gatherings. They're being basically seated in a place with malaika. That's the reality of it. Places of worship, places where adhan and iqama is given, places where congregations are held, are filled with malaika, and therefore we are sitting amongst malaika. Earlier, when we were about to start the earlier part of the program, somebody was asking, where is everybody? And my response often to such questions is, can't you see them? If you look around, you will see them. They're filling the space. Their malaika are filling the space. So alhamdulillah, whether it's 1, 2 or 5, 10, however many people participate, the malaika are with us, and it's a beautiful opportunity that we should not miss out on. Before I start tonight, it is 1 week since the departure of our dear brother Sayyid Yusuf, who's always behind the scene working hard for everyone's comfort and catering to everybody. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from him, as he is tonight as well, catering and behind the scene working on making this program successful. May Allah have mercy on the soul of the marhuma and grant her family patience and reward of as-sabirin. I request mu'mineen and mu'minat to remember her once again with al-Fatiha ma'a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The topic that we are starting, and inshallah we'll continue on this topic for the next for the future weeks, for the several programs, however many necessary to get somewhere important and somewhere where we feel it's sufficient. Inshallah we'll continue on this. It is regarding family ethics and the inspiration is from none other than the holy household, the purified household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his purified family, salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'in. They are our inspiration through their lives, how they lived, and through their words, obviously. Inshallah, we will learn from them. Before I get into the actual topic, I want to briefly introduce the significance of this topic, the importance of this topic. From an Islamic perspective, family, which starts with marriage, the initial part of family is what? It's marriage, yeah? It's before children. Some people think family is when children happen. Yeah? No, family is when marriage happens. Family is the most beloved union in the eyes of God, making it, according to the hadith, ما بني بناء في الإسلام أحب إلى الله من النكاح. No structure is constructed in Islam that is more beloved to God than marriage. Therefore, we find that bringing people together in Islam is the most important effort that one could make in this world. And therefore, you'll find that the prayer of those who are married are more rewarding than the prayers of those who are not married. It is more accepted from someone who is married to pray his daily prayers than someone who is not married. The rewards multiples. You know, the hadith says 70. 70 is actually to say a lot more. You know, basically it's not necessarily exactly 70. I gave this example before. The Prophet ﷺ is told by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you seek forgiveness for the munafiqeen 70 times, إن تستغفر لهم 70 مرة, 70 times God will not forgive them. What if he was to seek forgiveness 71 times? Will God forgive them at that point? That's not what it's suggesting. It is saying, even if you seek many times forgiveness for them, God will not forgive them. You see that? From that angle, when the hadith says the prayer of one who is married has 70 times more value than the one who is not married, it's not to say exactly 70. It's to say so many times more significant, so many times more, in fact, valuable and rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The actual action of getting married in Islam is considered completion of one's religion. So half of one's religion is completed through marriage. I may have shared this example before. Even in the Western world, when I lived in Australia, there was somebody who became a prime minister, a lady, and she was heavily criticized. She wasn't elected by people. She was, in fact, basically the shadow, or the basically next in line in terms of the president of the Labour Party, and she was the second person in the party, and therefore because he was removed, she became by default the prime minister. So one of the heaviest criticism on her was the fact that she was not married. This is a Western society. Why? Because they said, how could she relate to families? Because society is made of families. How could you relate to families and understand the challenges of families when you've never had a family, never been married, never had a family? You see, as a human being, you're not complete until you get married. How could your Islam be complete without getting married? Because Islam is a step above humanity. I said the prerequisite of Islam is humanity. First, you have to be a human being, then you start ascending to higher levels of humanity where you can gain nearness to the Almighty, to qurbatan ilallah. We pray and we do all the things that we do to gain nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's a higher level. But the first level is to be a human being. And therefore, one of the conditions of a complete human being is to have marriage. In Salat al-Jum'ah today, some of you may have attended or heard the sermons. I mentioned the importance of seeking rushd from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The concept of maturity, rushd. Ibrahim alayhi salam was granted rushd. The children, you don't give them their money inheritance until you find that they have rushd. Anastum minhum rushdan. Rushd, maturity. Yeah. Maturity is important, very important. Has different levels, jurisprudentially and in terms of spiritually, and even on a higher level of the journey to God and being the Khalifa, the vicegerent of God on earth. So these are different levels of rushd. One of the things that is a sign, one of the signs of maturity of insan is the ability to make the right decisions. Maturity is in decisions, by the way. To make the right decisions with regards to another ability that one has and another need that one has, which is to have partner. A right decision in that regard would be marriage, not playing around. Even the society, not non-religious society, recognizes that. But this guy is still playing around, or this girl, or whatever. They have not matured enough to form a family, to be responsible enough to form a family. This is in essence, a condition, a precondition for a human being and for a Muslim to be a complete Muslim. This is a condition to form a family, get married and form a family. But is it only to form it? No, it's also to maintain the family. This is why, on the other hand, so putting them together is the most beloved thing to God. Yes? What is the most detested? Halal. It's permitted but detested by God. Anyone who's familiar with the Arabic language or the Islamic terminology of any concept, you will hear them say أبغض الحلال. You must have heard the term أبغض الحلال. What is it? The most detested yet permissible act. What is it? Divorce, talaq. Yeah? So the opposite of forming the family, which is the most beloved thing to God, to bring people together, ما بني بناء في الإسلام. Nothing is more beloved to God in terms of forming a structure than marriage. Bring them together. The opposite of it, the most detested act to God. It is permissible, yet it is the most detested. Why? Because it is a level of lack of maintenance caused by wrong and immature decisions. That is what it is. It is caused by one or a series of wrong and immature decisions leads to that. Therefore, we should always ask God first. Remember that it's all in the hands. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي إِلَّا بِاللَّهِ. Nobody should have any kind of arrogance or pride. I made it 20 years of marriage, 40 years of marriage, 60 years of marriage. Don't have pride and say, I did it. No. وَمَا تَوْفِيقِي. It is through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ask God to grant you the level of maturity to make the right decisions with one of the most significant aspects of human life on earth, which is forming a family and maintaining a family. This is why we're having, inshallah, these conversations in the coming weeks. Today or tonight and in the coming weeks, we will have these conversations to make sure that we are able as believers to have graduated as an insan, as a human being, and graduated as a believer and completed our faith with marriage, and we're able to maintain that, successfully maintain our marriages. And what does it rely on? What does it take? It takes akhlaq, Islamic ethics within the family. An ethical person cannot be counted an ethical person if they're only ethical in certain parts of their lives. I'm so good with people, so good at work, so good at university. Everybody at work loves me. And at home, how are you? How does your partner, your spouse feel about you at home? That's your biggest test. That is the biggest determiner of whether or not you are an ethical person. Akhlaq is not what we call in Arabic nisbiyya. Some areas he has akhlaq, some other areas he doesn't have akhlaq. That's why we say someone who denies God has no akhlaq. You might say, but he has good manners and so. These are etiquettes. These are behaviors. Akhlaq has to be a complete package. One who is grateful cannot be grateful to some and not grateful to others. Grateful to my neighbor but not to my parents, for example. Grateful to my boss at work because he's the one who pays the paycheck, but not to my spouse putting food in front of me, or my mother putting food in front of me. Grateful means grateful, always grateful. So how could one be grateful if they're not grateful to their Creator? It starts with the Creator, having good akhlaq with the Creator, Ar-Rabb, akhlaq al-abdi ma'ar-Rabb, and from there branches off into every relationship that we have, even our relationship with ourselves. Our focus is not general akhlaq, not the akhlaq of these sessions, will be in our akhlaq in the family. How can we form and maintain an Islamic family according to the lives and words of Ahlul Bayt, the holy household of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Forming of that, there are some important things to be considered, and one has to open their eyes and be wise, but that only applies before marriage. This is an important disclaimer. There's a good saying, they say before marriage, open your eyes. What happens afterwards? Close your eyes. After marriage, that's it, done. It's not time to research anymore. If you wanted to research, you research before marriage. That is why we have a hadith, and it's important. اجتنبوا خضراء الدمن. Stay away from a beautiful plant that grew in the muds, in the dirty area, slums if you want. They said, what do you mean, Ya Rasulullah? وَمَا خَضْرَاءَ الدُّمَنِ. He said, a woman who may be beautiful appearance but who was raised in a bad environment. منبت السوء. المرأة الحسناء في منبت السوء. So he is telling people, look, be careful. Before marriage, you need to make sure you do your research right and choose the right person. Compatibility is important, and most importantly, akhlaq. One's akhlaq, their ethics, their morals, to have good ethics, good morals. And part of ethics, we said, is what? Their faith. If they have no faith, they have no ethics. They have etiquettes, they have good manners due to habits and culture, but it's not what we consider akhlaq. For our discussion, akhlaq stems from faith in God, gratitude to God, and therefore living a godly life. That is what we are referring to when we're speaking of ethics, of akhlaq, or Islamic ethics rather. So, before marriage, open your eyes and search carefully. Tonight I will give some quick highlights, and inshallah we'll have dedicated sessions for some of those topics later on. After marriage, to be inclusive here, okay? So some here are sitting, they're not married, and they're wondering, what do we do here? Open your eyes and complete your religion. Don't sit here and feel sufficient with a salat that is one versus hundreds if you get married. Your salat, the reward of it, multiples that you cannot even match. So do get married, and the sooner the better. That is one. Before marriage, open your eyes, research, make sure you have some compatibility in your outlooks on life, in your beliefs, and so on and so forth. Very important. Don't be fooled by the looks and the appearance and money. None of these things would last. In the hadith, if one gets married to a person for their wealth or for their beauty, they will not see the goodness from that. Lam yara khayraha. They will not see goodness in that. Don't get married for money, don't get married for physical beauty and appearances. So they are also a part of your search. In other words, we have rulings in Islam that you can even look at your spouse beyond what is permissible without lust, for the sake of determination that she or he is somebody who you would consider attractive and want to live with. So that has a part, but should not be the reason. If that is the reason, there's a problem. Faith should be more significant, other factors of compatibility should be more significant, and then obviously this is a factor that may have some level of effect on the decision. So that's one. Who to get married? Not for wealth, not for beauty, for good heart, good akhlaq, good belief. Somebody who is God-fearing, because then they would consider God in their decisions in life with your regards. That is in fact one of the meanings of salam, that I come in submission to God in your regards. That's why we greet each other with Assalamu alaikum. That is what essentially we are trying to say. Hopefully we know what we're saying. It's important to reflect on these things. So next thing, now we got married. What do we do now? Maintain it. Don't keep having doubts and questions. Is he the right person for me? Is she the right person for me? That should have been before. You are together, now make it work and continue maintaining your marriage together. How do we do it when there are challenges in life? I said this tonight, I wanted to speak about the importance of the subject. We are dealing with a problem in our communities and in today's society in general. In general, today's society is facing a big problem. Divorce rates are going up. Family, the value of a family is being undermined. The importance and value of a family is being more and more undermined with time passing. Divorce is becoming more common in the society. So many marriages are ending in divorce. If I say it's more than 50%, I'm not exaggerating. People who get married and this is a disease that is very contagious and it's spreading. It's like a pandemic spreading throughout the world. It's not just in certain parts of the world, it's not just in the West, it is happening everywhere. At some time in the past, divorce was something to be completely ashamed of, and not, it was basically something nobody wants to hear or talk about. Now it's very easy, very simple, no problem. they have a problem, it's almost like the first thing that comes out of their mouth, we're going to get divorced. And the best part is, in today's society, I hear it especially in this part of the world, the best part is, you're going to hear from my lawyer, talk to my lawyer, already. Plans and lawyers, and it's, where is the ashra? وَلَا تَنْسَوُا الْفَضْلَ بَيْنَكُمْ. Quran says, don't forget all the grace and goodness that was between you. Even if you are to get divorced, it doesn't have to be a fight. It's almost like every time it has to be a fight. This is a sad reality that we're dealing with. So it's very important to address this issue and make sure that we know how to maintain our marriages in Islam. As I said, it is more and more frequent that we are seeing problems occurring and leading to either unhappy marriages or, God forbid, divorces. And that, both situations, marriages with a lot of trouble and divorce, are very, very harmful for our children. Extremely harmful. We care, earlier, or I wasn't during Jum'ah, I shared something. If your child became 5 or 6 years old and still didn't talk, what would you do? You get worried, yeah? You want to take them to a speech pathologist and try and figure it out. Take them to the doctor, speech pathologist, and whatever else. And because you want your child to mature in that regard. To the next level. We should also want to mature, continue to mature. And each person has to have some levels of maturity at some point in their lives. So a child starts walking at a certain point. If they don't walk, parents start worrying. They start comparing, asking others, how old was your child when they walked? There's a norm, there's a curve and some standard. And within that's when, if anything goes outside standard of deviation, one starts worrying. My child is not talking, my child is not walking. But do you know how important it is for your child to mature emotionally and socially, and have the right maturity in terms of how they can be a member of a family? How they can in the future themselves form a family. Your child one day wants to form a family. Do you want them to live in trouble all their lives? If that's what you want for them, then expose them to trouble or divorce. If not, we need to solve our problems and learn from the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt, the purified ones, the most pure ones, learn how they live their lives and how they maintain their marriages with the maximum, the top level of love, respect, goodness, generosity, forgiveness, all the beautiful things, values of humanity. They maintain that. How did they do that? We learn and apply that. And make sure that we make our households pure. Purify, not just, we've been speaking about physical purification, we want to also purify spiritually. Make sure that our families, our households are pure on a spiritual level. Earlier I mentioned, as we were speaking about Islamic law, purifying from najasat helps. If you want your house to be home to angels, you purify from najasat. But what is a higher and worse type of najasa than the physical najasat are the spiritual ones. Like what? Like sins. Sins are a higher level of najasat. Disregard of God's law is a higher level of najasat that creates more problems in your household. So one of the first things I want to address tonight, inshallah, briefly, one of the first and very, very important points in maintaining households that all of us should strive towards One of the most important factors that you will hear repeatedly in the ahadith of Ahlul Bayt and in Risalat al-Huquq of Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, and many other texts we hear that repeatedly. One of the most important things that we should work on and try and maintain in our household is the concept of safh. Fa'fu wasfahu, the concept of forgiveness and opening new pages. A marriage cannot survive if you want to continue holding into the old grudges, the problems, the things that happened on the wedding night, and before that when we were engaged, and early on in our marriage he did this, she did that, and all of it. It cannot survive. You will not maintain a healthy marriage. Either you would end up in divorce, or you would live in a hell of a marriage. Either of them is not healthy for any party, and especially if there are children involved, it won't be healthy at all. It will not survive, it will not be healthy unless you can forgive and forget. We need to implement that. Based on what I said earlier, a household that's filled with sins is impure, is filthy, home to the shayateen, devils, and it has no peace. It would be filled with fights and quarrels and arguments. That is the kind of house. So how do we fix that? You want God to forgive you? We said sins are filth, yeah? You want God to forgive you? What should I do? What does Quran say? فَاعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. You forgive others and open a new page. Wipe it out of your mind, out of your memory. Do you not love to be forgiven by God? Do you not love to be forgiven by God? فَاعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا. Do you not love to be forgiven? You want to be forgiven? Forgive others. That's how it works. And guess what? When you are forgiven and you have forgiven others and you're praying for God to forgive them, all of a sudden the entire household is changed to a completely different level. You're forgiven them, you're praying for their forgiveness, they are on a different level. The entire household changes. So the first step in improving your house, your basically house and the environment in your house, your marriage, your family, the first step is forgiveness. Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. He says in Risalat al-Huquq, he says one of the rights of your wife. In there, he brings the rights of the wife, and within that he mentions the rights of the husband. For those who accuse Islam to be favoring men, it is quite the opposite, if anything. If there is favoritism, it's the other way around. In any case, in there, he says, وَجَبَ أَن يُحْسِنَ صُحْبَةَ نِعْمَةِ اللَّهِ. It is incumbent, it is a wajib, it is obligatory upon you to be a good companion to the blessing of God. It's a gift. Your spouse is a gift from God. وَيَعْلَمَ أَنَّ ذَلِكَ نِعْمَةٌ مِّنْهُ. From God, he should know that your spouse is a blessing from God. Therefore, you are a good companion or company of the blessing of God. And then he says he should be honoring her, يُكْرِمَهَا وَيَرْفَقَ بِهَا. He should be وَيَرْفَقَ بِهَا. He should be honoring her. He should be treating her gently. Rifq is to treat her gently. And then he says, and your right on her is greater. because it includes obedience except with what disobeys God. And then he says, وَأَن يَغْفِرَ لَهَا. Her right is that he forgives her. It's her right. Many ahadith from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ahlul Bayt declare it to be a right that you forgive. Often it is directed towards men because they are the stronger party in the decision with this regard in the family. So it is addressed towards them. But it's her right. And yes, it's his right too. He has those rights as well. The hadith is actually very clear on that. That he says that his right is that and the obedience with regards to certain things besides except when it's disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You'll find that clearly it is the right of your spouse that you forgive them, and through that you can get forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now talk is cheap, isn't that what they say? Talk is cheap. You might say, but we all know about this. We know forgiveness is important. We've heard it all our lives that we should forgive. We tell our children that you should forgive. When your children fight each other, what do you tell them? It's very interesting how we behave towards our children and what we teach them in our own behavior, not with our words. We tell them you should share, and sometimes with our siblings or others around us, we keep it all and give the petty cash, what we can do with that. That's not sharing. Is that what you're teaching your children? Practice versus what you're preaching. We teach our children to forgive. If your children fight, the siblings, brothers and sisters, amongst each other fight, what do you tell them? Fight him forever and don't ever forgive. Is that what you tell them? But how do you behave when you fight? Let's think about it. When we fight, do we do the same thing? But it was his fault, or it was her fault. Isn't that what we normally say? And when children say it was his fault, or what do we say? It's okay, forgive them. But he started it. Doesn't matter, forgive them. Do we practice that ourselves? When it comes to us, it's like those things don't apply to us, only for children. Don't swear, only for children. Sometimes they say don't give children caffeine. I don't know if that's true. We need to verify it with doctors. I mean, I've done some reading on it, and I avoid it for children. But my problem is, if I'm having it, I cannot tell my child not to have it. So if they come to me and they want to have a sip, I have to give them. I get yelled at sometimes, but it's difficult. Because this is not extremism, by the way. This is how the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt were. When some mother came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, and said, Ya Rasulullah, tell my son not to eat too many dates, tamr. He eats too many dates. Tell him not to eat too many dates. So he told her, okay, bring him tomorrow. So they went back, and she came the next day, and he told him, don't eat too many dates. The mother requested that I tell you, don't eat too many dates, and I'm telling you. So she said, Ya Rasulullah, you could have told him that yesterday. He said, no, I had eaten too many dates myself. How could I tell him not to eat too many dates? So the Prophet is known to have loved dates, tamr, and he ate. So in other words, if I ate too many dates, how can I tell this child not to have too many dates? If I am myself not sharing with others, if I am the type of person who keeps all or the most, and just to make myself feel better, I give some here and there. And when it comes to even wajib things, I want to cheat God, not the tax system, cheat God with my, khums and so on. And yet, I tell my children, you should share. When you want your children to forgive each other when they have a fight. Do you forgive each other when you have a fight? So one of the conditions that you need to have in a household and continue to have and keep having is the concept of safh, forgiveness and forgetting, wiping, for completely wiping it. Safh is beyond just forgiveness. Safh is where you decide within yourself that that is going to be put behind me. I'm going to wipe it from my mind. I don't want to think about it. I don't want it to affect my relationship, my attitude, my approach to my spouse. I don't want it to. So I have to wipe it out of my mind. And a hint here, which is, I think, very helpful. A story somebody sent me. Some of you may have read this story before, but reminders are good for the believers. فَذَكِّرْ إِنَّ الذِّكْرَى تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Inshallah, we're amongst them, and reminders are good for us. A Hakim, a very wise person, saw another individual who was walking by him, an elderly person, wise person. That individual looked very angry, extremely angry. So the wise person asked him, he said, what is wrong with you? You seem very angry. He said, yes, I passed by someone, he said his name, and he was so rude. He did not even turn towards me, did not greet me. I greeted him and he didn't even respond. He turned away and walked away. It is bothering me. It's extremely bothering me. So the Hakim asked him, the wise person, he said, if you had passed by that individual and realized he's on the floor, extremely unwell, sick, requiring physical attention, a physician who can come, medical attention, sorry, a physician who can come and take care of this person, would you be angry with them? He said, no, why would I be angry with someone who's sick on the floor? He said, what would you do? I would go and get them help. If I can't help them myself, I'll get him some help. He said, well, for physical sickness, you won't be angry with him because he's physically unwell. If you passed by him and he had fainted there, he was on the ground, maghshiyin alayh, fainted, you wouldn't be angry with them, and you would get them help. Well, guess what? This person that you passed by was sick in a different way. Why are you angry? Now change your way of seeing things and perceiving things in life. Change it. Someone who is misbehaving towards you is disobeying God before he misbehaves towards you, or she. If they are doing anything, فَإِن يُكَذِّبُوكَ فَقَدْ كَذَّبُوا اللَّهَ مِن قَبْلُ. Who am I? Who are you? Who are any of us compared to God? They're sinning towards God when they're doing anything wrong towards me or anyone else. So they're sick on a level of their existence and presence and humanity and faith. They're sick. Why would I be angered by somebody who is unwell, who requires attention? Not medical attention, spiritual attention perhaps, ethical attention. They need help. If you look at things in this way, your outlook changes, therefore your approach changes. But if we look at it as me versus them head on, there will be a problem. anytime he or she says something that I don't like, that I take it personally, and ego is there, and then the next thing is أنا ربكم الأعلى. The Fir'aun, I am your greatest God. Within every one of us, there is that disease. Within every one of us. And we need to what? We need to tame ourselves, our nafs, tarweel nafs. And remember that it's the right of your spouse, of your partner, of your children, of your parents, in all of these relationships in the family, one of the rights is that you forgive. That is a right when it comes to family. And in general, it is such a strong recommendation that God puts you next to Him when you act with forgiveness. He says, فَاعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَنْ يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. You forgive others, you are next to God. He puts you next to Him in that equation. You're doing a godly act. You become an agent of God. But that's what? Requiring not just, I say forgive, al-afwu indal maqdira. Keep it in mind. One of the highest levels of akhlaq, the Prophet ﷺ says, one of the highest levels of akhlaq, there are three. One of them is وَأَن تَعْفُوَ عَمَّنْ ظَلَمَكَ تُعْطِيَ مَنْ حَرَمَكَ تَصِلَ مَنْ قَطَعَكَ وَتَعْفُوَ عَمَّنْ ظَلَمَكَ. You forgive one who has oppressed you. In most cases, there's a misunderstanding. There's no oppression even. You cannot even say dhulm. There's a misunderstanding. From her or his perspective, they were doing the right thing. From your perspective, it was the wrong thing. And that, to many of us, that suffices to start fights and problems and eventually destroy a family, either by divorce or just living in hell. Whereas, if you want the makarim, one of the highest and most honorable ethics in every relationship, especially in the most beloved union, which is marriage, is to forgive even if they have oppressed you. Here, ظَلَمَكَ includes knowingly oppressed you. Even if they have knowingly oppressed you, have failed giving you your rights knowingly, if you forgive them, that makes you amongst the honorable ones. And in general, forgiveness puts us next to God. فَاعْفُوا وَاصْفَحُوا أَلَا تُحِبُّونَ أَن يَغْفِرَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. The first step, and one of the most important steps in maintaining a good marriage, a good family environment, is forgiveness and opening new pages completely. And sometimes what it takes, the last hint I will give, and inshallah, if there are any questions, I'll try and address them, and otherwise in future sessions we can elaborate. The last hint I want to give you here is, if you don't have amnesia, act like one. I don't know if you got my point. If you don't have forgetfulness, act like you do. You sleep at night, you had a mountain of issues in your mind. You wake up in the morning, imagine you forgot everything. What did they say? Fake it until you make it. That's safh. Fake safh until you make safh. Fake the opening of a new page until you actually learn to open a new page. Today, God gave me a new day. I open a new page. Yesterday and before is completely behind me. Today is a new day. It's a new gift from God. I have a companion who is a gift from God. I want to be on good terms with my companions. I forgot everything. One of my mentors, who's very close to me, and I've learned a lot from. His family members, they think he has selective amnesia, because you know what's selective, in the sense that he is extremely smart, sharp, and he has memorized Quran and Hadith to the level that you would not believe he could forget anything. But talks and fights and the arguments and those things, he forgets immediately. If there is an argument at the dinner, at the lunch table, at dinner, as if there's nothing. He completely, it's not there. It's a new thing altogether. It's a beautiful gift to have. And that is the concept of fa'fu wasfahu. Inshallah, we can implement that. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to be like him in forgiving others, and hoping and praying that he forgives us, inshallah. Before we conclude, if there are any quick questions, I'll try and address them, because we did go a little over time. So if there are any quick questions, otherwise, inshallah, we will conclude with once again request the Fatiha for all the marhumin, especially the mother-in-law of our dear brother Sayyid Yusuf. Inshallah, we'll remember her with another recitation of Al-Fatiha ma'al ikhlas wa salat ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillah.